And I'm standing here today to ask for the resignation of the Chief of Police.
Tonight, family members and First Nations leaders call for the Winnipeg Chief of Police to step aside.
I was touched by it. It upset me, it maddened me, and I don't know, I honestly thought there wasn't much that someone like me could do from here.
And for the first time in Canada, an Indigenous language is available in braille. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. There are calls tonight for the Chief of the Winnipeg Police to resign. Earlier this week, the Winnipeg Police said they will not search for the bodies of two First Nations women whose remains may lay in a landfill just outside of the city. That has upset family members and chiefs across the province and the country. Sav Jonza has more on this story.
It's tragic to say that even in death, they are still discriminated.
At a press conference in Ottawa, First Nations chiefs from Manitoba called for a change in leadership at the Winnipeg Police. It comes after police announced earlier in the week that they would not search a landfill north of the city, where the bodies of two Indigenous women are believed to be.
I'm standing here today to ask for the resignation of the Chief of Police for the Winnipeg Police Service, Danny Smythe.
Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are victims of alleged serial killer Jeremy Skibicki. Harris's daughters, Cambria and Kara Harris, let their disappointment be known.
Not only have you refused to search these landfills, you have presented no alternative routes for how we can give these women peace. We have been the ones thinking up the different resolutions for this issue, and we should not have to be the ones coming up with ways to make you do your job better.
We saw this happen with residential schools. And here you are, once again, creating unmarked graves of Indigenous peoples.
With the location of two of the three missing women believed to be known, many are wondering why the force will not do the search justice, believing race plays a part.
In Toronto, where there was a missing Caucasian man, and they found him like a needle in a haystack in a landfill that was bigger than what we're talking about in Manitoba. If they can do that, Winnipeg can do that.
The Chief of Police admitted at a press conference earlier this week that it's not a lack of resources stopping them, but safety.
The circumstances, combined with the safety hazard, form the basis of a difficult decision not to go forward with a search at Prairie Green.
He was asked what he thought this decision might mean for the police service's relationship with Indigenous people.
I would characterize our relationship with the majority of the Indigenous community as a good one.
Long Plain First Nation Chief Kyra Wilson, where Harris and Myron are from, responded directly to his claims.
As one of the leaders in Manitoba for Long Plain First Nation, that we don't have a good relationship right now because you are not searching for our women in the landfills. So to me, the message that you are sending is that our women do not matter. Indigenous women do not matter.
APTN News reached out to the Winnipeg Police for comment but did not receive a response. Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Now, roughly an hour ago, the Mayor of Winnipeg and Premier of Manitoba announced that operations will be paused at the landfill north of the city, where the remains of two First Nations women are believed to be. They say the pause will allow for more time to determine next steps.
I put a call into the Premier's office earlier today asking if she could assist with that. And I'm so pleased that in short order she's here today and is going to assist with pausing operations at that landfill. Really, it's to determine what the next steps may be, and that gives officials time to determine those next steps.
What could next steps involve?
So I'm not sure, yes, to be frank. I mean, we're working with our departments, we're working with the City of Winnipeg, we're working with Indigenous communities, we'll work with police, we'll work with other law enforcement. We'll see what does that mean in terms of, what will that look like moving forward. I think we need to assess the site and we need to do many different things over the course of the next little while. In the meantime, all we're calling for right now is a pause.
Members of the Winnipeg Police Board, including the mayor, are meeting this hour with the chief of police. We'll also have more on this tonight right after the news on Nation to Nation. Here's Lindsay Richardson with more.
Tonight on Nation to Nation, we're looking beyond the politics of the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly and to a situation advocates and politicians alike are calling a crisis, an emergency. The alleged serial murders of 4 Indigenous women in Winnipeg, a place the federal government says is the epicenter of the MMIWG crisis. But Winnipeg police are reluctant to search a landfill site where they feel these women were dumped, prompting a cross-country call to action and mass community mobilization.
What is happening is an ongoing genocide time and time again.
We'll unpack this coming up right after the news.
Of course, we want to hear what you have to say about this or anything else you've seen here. Here's how you can continue that conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. In other news, influenza is sweeping across the country and children are being particularly hard hit. In BC, the health minister has now confirmed that 6 children have died from the virus so far this year.
It shows the significant dangers the flu can have. For many children, it can be relatively mild, and then for some it can be fundamentally difficult.
We're learning one of the victims is 9-year-old Ayla Lisoth. She was rushed to hospital last week, seriously sick with influenza. But instead of getting better, she got another infection and later died. There's also been 2 flu-related deaths in Alberta and at least 1 in Ontario. The rise of flu-related deaths in children has doctors across the country sounding the alarm. People are urged to get the flu shot and wear masks to limit the spread. Coming up after the break, the latest from the Assembly of First Nations Special Assembly in Ottawa. Plus, we hear from the president of the Métis Nation of Alberta about their recent vote on a constitution.
Very clearly we'll be designing our own laws, such as exactly how we elect our people, how we support our citizens in every way.
Welcome back. The Assembly of First Nations is wrapping up its week of meetings in Ottawa today, where the Chiefs had an opportunity to hear from 3 federal party leaders. APTN's Annette Francis has that story.
Despite being behind in their agenda, the Chiefs took some time to hear from government leaders. Jagmeet Singh, leader of the NDP, spoke about the ongoing violence against Indigenous women and girls and wanting to be an ally to fight for a brighter future. He also took the time for a Q&A.
Where's the honor of the crown? When is it going to happen? If you can, please talk to Justin and say, give us our land back.
I'll certainly pass on the message now, but I hope by the next election you can just talk directly to the Prime Minister, and that'll be me. And then I'll get this done for you.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre did not attend in person and instead sent a video address. He said under the Trudeau government there's been a lot of failures to address issues like clean drinking water or adequate housing. He wants to work on empowering First Nations and promises to tear down barriers.
I want to make it easier for your communities to get out from under the paternalistic Indian Act where you so choose. You have the thousands of years of history, the local knowledge of land and people, and the wisdom to decide for yourselves.
It received little response from the Chiefs, save for one who would have preferred to continue to work on resolutions.
Please do not ever again put a video like that ahead of our residential school survivors.
The grand finale was saved for the Prime Minister. He spoke of reconciliation and working together towards self-determination. Then he took the time for questions from chiefs and proxies, some frustrated.
There's still many communities dealing with third world conditions, and you're calling for partnership, reconciliation, justice. Well, there's a lot of communities, such as Attawapiskat, that need that need to be heard. And there's communities like us shouldn't be suffering to meet the basic needs for our people.
The story of Attawapiskat is one of heartbreak, and the young people that are dealing with the situations there continue to be a real challenge. And you mentioned Niskandiga as well. Yes, we're getting closer to ending the boil water advisory there. We've put in a new water treatment plant, invested, but there's still work to be done.
Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
And you can find much more on the AFN Special Assembly over on our website, aptnnews.ca. Earlier this month, over 15,000 members of the Métis Nation of Alberta voted yes to a new constitution. 97% of those voters said yes to giving the MNA more self-government. We spoke with Métis Nation Alberta President Audrey Poitras earlier in the week about the new constitution. President Poitras, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you very much, Dennis.
Why was this new constitution necessary?
Oh, this new constitution was very necessary. It's something that I think our citizens have talked about certainly for all my life. I've heard our ancestors, our past leaders, talk about the importance of getting the recognition for who we were as Métis people, and a constitution is a big part of that. Designing a constitution that will be there for our people.
Well, what new powers, if any, does it give to the Métis Nation of Alberta?
So, under the Constitution, we very clearly will be designing our own laws, such as exactly how we elect our people, how we support our citizens in every way. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at our Constitution, it's got everything that I believe we need to move forward. It has an amendment clause where if things need to change going, as we know it's a living document, if things need to change as we continue, we can do that as well.
What does this mean for 6 MNA regions across the province?
So the 6 MNA regions are part of the structure we have under the Alberta Societies Act right now. Within the new constitution, we are moving the government closer to the people at the local level. There will be district councils, which we have a transition committee that is now in place that will be meeting with all of our locals and all of our regions to make sure that everything that they worked hard for under the Societies Act model that we've been under for how long will be transferred over to the new model of governance under the Métis Nation Constitution, the Otipemisiwak Government Constitution.
There are 14 Métis settlements that are opposed to the Constitution and say they're considering legal action. What are your thoughts on that?
So within the Constitution, again, if you've had an opportunity to look at it, what we have done in there is have an article that deals with the Métis settlements, and basically very, very clear, we're not interfering at all with the provincial legislation that is in place for the Métis settlements right now. If people know the history of the Métis people in Alberta, it was people on and off that land that worked very hard to ensure that that land was protected for the Métis people through the Alberta government under provincial legislation, with the intent and understanding from everything I heard all my life and everything I've read historically, to have it entrenched federally within the Canadian Constitution to protect that land. That's what we've put in there, to work with the Métis settlements to ensure that it continues to get protected.
President Poitras, what are your top agenda items when talking to Ottawa as a self-government?
What are our top agenda? Actually, we signed a self-government agreement in 2019, and we did lay out a lot of items that we wanted to talk about. But within that self-government agreement itself, we indicated we would develop a constitution for and by our Métis people. We would also make sure that we had a transition plan in place. with setting up a transition committee. Our citizens at our last assembly set up a process for a transition committee that would ensure that a transition plan was in place to move out of the Alberta Societies Act over to the Otipemisiwak Métis government. We also have had discussions around both an interim and which will turn into a final financial arrangement. So we also have within there, the fourth thing was a relationship agreement between the Government of Canada and the Métis Nation within Alberta. And the whole idea around that is, how will we work with Canada in the future, and how will Canada work with us in the future? And we wanted to do that to ensure that future generations will not have to struggle every time something changes within a government. This way it'll be in legislation. It will be protecting our people to ensure we can still continue to have the recognition we deserve as one of the Indigenous people in Canada that have equal rights to the First Nations and the Inuit, and we're finally starting to get there.
President Poitras, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Time for one more quick break. Coming up, a first for the Mi'kmaq language. Find out how a braille transcriber in Atlantic Canada is helping bring out the language in a new way.
I mean, there might not be a large call for Mi'kmaq braille, but anyone who's now looking will see that, oh, this one got created, so we can move from there.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And this is the view in front of Elliot Druniak's house in Manitoba. Beautiful shot. Elliot, what a view. Must be a beauty in the summer, too. We want to see your photos. You can send them to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at Friday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, +5 with showers in Halifax, -2 in Charlottetown, 17 below in Kuujjuaq, snow and 10 below for Nain. Sunny and -3 in Montreal, sunny and 14 below for Val-d'Or. -3 in Sault Ste. Marie, 8 below for North Bay. 0 with snow in Thunder Bay, -5 in Sioux Lookout. -10 for God's Lake and Norway House, 11 below in the Pas. -6 with snow in Winnipeg, sunny and 15 below in Dauphin. -8 in Regina, snow and -6 for Saskatoon. -11 with snow in Meadow Lake, 12 below in flurries in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, sunny and 14 below in Fort McMurray, -10 with the sun out in Fort Chip. 8 below in Edmonton, +2 in Lethbridge. +5 in Vancouver, -1 for Kamloops. 3 below in Prince George, -8 for Dease Lake. -15 with snow in Old Crow, flurries and 14 below in Whitehorse. -15 with snow in Yellowknife, 26 below in Norman Wells. -26 for Sax Harbor, -24 in Pawlatuck. 23 below with snow in Baker Lake, -29 in Cambridge Bay. -19 and snow in Resolute, 30 below in Joe Haven. Even further north now, scientists have discovered evidence of life in Greenland a full 2 million years ago. Using the genetic material that's shed by living organisms, the researchers were able to determine that the barren Arctic desert was once a lush landscape filled with trees and a wide array of animals.
It's not only a single organism, so the previous record, if you want, of 1 million years was from a mammoth tooth, but this is a recovery of an entire ecosystem, right? So both plants and animals that are 2 million years old.
Scientists were able to extract genetic information from small damaged bits of DNA and compare that information to DNA from other species. That led them to conclude that the region was once home to a mix of Arctic plants and animals, as well as ones that normally prefer warmer climates. Now for a touching story in Mi'kmaq territory, where for the first time in Canada, an Indigenous language is available in braille. Angel Moore has that story.
Christine Muse is coding braille at the Atlantic Province's Special Education Authority in Halifax. This grade 7 braille textbook is coded for English speakers.
There's a lot of cases where someone only speaks an Indigenous language, in which case they would not have had an opportunity to learn braille.
Muse is constantly surrounded by a library of braille-converted textbooks for her job. It was after the discovery of the 215 suspected graves in Kamloops that Muse realized no Indigenous languages were available in Canada. So she got to work and created a Mi'kmaq Braille code.
I was touched by it. It upset me, it maddened me, and I don't know, I honestly thought there wasn't much that someone like me could do from here, but I did hope there would be a resurgence in people wanting to regain their culture and their language, and I just knew that if one of them was blind and didn't speak English or French, then they were pretty much out of luck.
Muse consulted with the Mi'kmaq community, including linguist Bernie Francis of the Membertou First Nation. Francis says Braille helps preserve the Mi'kmaq language.
Actually, it's a great thing because, you know, it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have a writing system which adequately represented the sounds in the Mi'kmaq language. So the fact that we're already into Braille is really a bonus for us.
Muse, a certified Braille transcriber for the last 15 years, earned the Louis Award from the American Printing House for the Blind for creating the Mi'kmaq Braille Code, which is endorsed by the Braille Literacy Canada. Now she has started to code Mi'kmaq books.
I mean, there might not be a large call for Mi'kmaq Braille, but anyone who's now looking will see that, oh, this one got created, so we can move from there.
Mi'kmaq now joins Navajo, the only other Indigenous language coded into Braille. Muse hopes it isn't the last, and that people will continue to be touched by Indigenous language preservation. Angel Moore, APTN, Jabuktuk, also known